At the moment, social media companies like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat and TikTok are largely self-regulating. But could that be about to change in the UK? Well, today the Conservative government signalled that it plans to widen the powers of the broadcasting regulator Ofcom to allow it to punish firms that don't protect users from harmful content.
What we couldn't do is introduce a bill tomorrow that is going to tackle every single aspect in the best possible way, because we're not there yet. No country is quite there yet. We're going to make sure we get those decisions right so that the prime focus of that dual purpose of protecting free speech and protecting children and young people in particular is the right one. And I'm really confident not only that we are going as fast as we possibly can on this, but also that we will get to the right conclusion, because it has to be deliverable.
So can social media platforms be made safer places? If so, how will that be achieved? Joining us now from Aberdeen is Annabelle Turner, Director of the charity CyberSafe Scotland. And in Edinburgh is Bill Buchanan, a Professor in the School of Computing at Edinburgh Napier University. Thank you both for joining us this evening. Annabelle Turner, if I can come to you first of all. This is to address the issue of online harm. What do you understand we take the meaning of online harm to be when it comes to social media?
So in the announcement today, it said that it was to cover, the proposed scope was to include dangers to young people and also racial or religious-based hatred or sex-based hatred. But obviously it's really difficult to interpret that, particularly when it comes to dangers to young people.
Bill Buchanan, is that one of the issues here, that it is difficult to interpret these meanings?
It's almost impossible. I think we've let the web run wild for about 30 years, and traditional media companies have had to abide by the laws in the UK and wherever they arise. But when it comes to these international companies, then the laws they will actually abide by will exist in another region of the world. And I think they've got away with it because there's a differentiation between being a provider or a publisher or a distributor of content. For 30 years, these companies have really got away with just being a distributor of content and not to be able to moderate. So the time now is coming really where we have probably one of the greatest debates of the 21st century about how we can regulate the internet.
And details of the powers are still to be set out, Annabelle, but do you think Ofcom will have sufficient teeth to deal with this?
Well, early indications are that it's still very much under discussion at the moment, but what's worked with the financial services industry has been forcing individuals to be named within companies for taking responsibility, ultimately a sort of buck stops here approach, and fining powers. Now, obviously, given the size of some of the companies that we're talking about, we don't know how effective those are going to be, but we've got to start somewhere, and this is urgent now, given the level of harm that's happening to children in Scotland.
So, Annabelle, specifically, what would you like to see addressed?
Well, particularly in relation to child sexual abuse content, that those images need to be taken down very quickly. There's a lack of confidence amongst young people that when they report issues online, there's going to be a prompt response from companies. And in fact, with the parents and children that we work with, we see over and over again that companies like Snapchat, TikTok are not responding when content's being reported to them that's deeply harmful to children.
And Bill Buchanan, will fines be enough, or is there a need for criminal sanctions to be brought in?
Of course, every chief executive of a company is really responsible for everything that happens in the company and to lay down common laws of decency and the way that the company actually operates. Obviously, one worry is that there will be a knee-jerk reaction and YouTube, Facebook might start to filter content which doesn't start to encroach on these dangerous levels of content. And they're so powerful that they could actually stand in the way of freedom of speech.
Yeah, Bill, picking up on that, I mean, how do you think the big tech companies will actually react to this? They have been self-regulating more or less up until now. How are they going to react to this new body coming in?
I think they've been employing a lot of policing agents. Obviously, when it comes down to it, machine learning can do some things. It can pick up bad words, abusive words, bullying words, aggressive tones, and so on, and detect things like guns and blood and so on in videos. That can all be done in real time now. You'll actually see when you upload a video to YouTube, it'll take quite some time actually for it to appear online, because there's a lot of checking, a lot of transposing of text going on. But in the end, a machine really can't tell things like sarcasm and so on. So it will often be fed to a human to make that judgment. And that judgment needs to happen fairly quickly for the tech companies, or the whole of the internet would slow down.
Yeah. Annabelle, Bill mentioned there the issues, the concerns that have been raised over freedom of expression. How do you strike that balance between allowing the freedom of expression and protecting people online?
Well, last year, Facebook reported more than 70 million in these images of child sexual abuse. You know, you're always going to have a conflict when it comes to rights. There's always going to be people saying that one right has to take priority over another. But right now, I'm just really pleased that the government's pushing forward with an agenda that is going to put children first in this case, because it's just so desperately needed. I mean, the Internet Watch Foundation found 130,000 plus child sexual abuse URLs, and that can be images and videos in the UK this last year. You know, it's escalating all the time, so we've got to act now.
And Annabelle, is Ofcom a big enough organisation to deal with this, the scale of this?
I don't know, but I totally appreciate why it's been given to them at this stage. And one of the problems with this, we've been talking about this regulation for more than 10 years, you know, and the number of children that are being harmed in the meantime is, for a victim of sexual abuse, if that content, as a child, if that content is repeated around the internet over and over again, the trauma that's caused to that child is so immense. Yeah, sorry, doesn't quite answer your question, but I think we've got to start now, and Ofcom's there.
It is a tricky one, Bill Buchanan. I mean, coming up with the regulations is maybe the easy part. Enforcing it is another matter. Do you think Ofcom is up to this challenge?
I don't think so. And I think it'll be a bit like the Data Protection Act, GDPR, where we've got to feel our way, understand the level of fines. Obviously, the UK is a smaller fish in a big sea. When we were part of the EU, perhaps there was more clout there from the EU to really rain down on these companies. And within the EU just now, you see really a kickback against these big internet service providers just now, who are working out with our legal jurisdictions. So obviously Ofcom are coming from a telecoms type background, and really internet content is a different area. It's not about signals and data and the provision of networks. It's about understanding abusive behaviour, bullying and so on. And really we aren't quite there in the mechanisms that we have. And we would obviously worry that there should be some transparency that the big internet service providers need to provide. Because the last thing we need is for whole communities to be locked out of the internet.
But
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Sorry to cut you off like that, but we're out of time. Apologies. Thank you both for joining us in Scotland tonight, though.